One conversation, three perspectives, honest debate on the stories shaping travel.
Each episode tackles a live issue, big trend, or hot debate across the travel industry.
Each week we'll be joined by guests for honest conversations, strong opinions, and lively debate.
I'm James.
I'm Andy.
I'm Will. Welcome to Let's Talk Travel. After the Iranian war reached a ceasefire, every analyst, every airline, every tour operator has spent time pricing in Middle East recovery. New routes, restocked inventory, staff rehired. And now the ceasefire is creaking. More attacks are unfurling. And if peace is signed, will it meaningfully hold? So here's the question no one in this industry wants to say out loud. What if it doesn't hold? What if this is just how it is now? Let's talk about that. Well, hello, everyone. We've decided to start our own podcast. I'm Will Plummer, and I love things all travel, risk, and payments. So that's what I've done throughout my career. It's the unsexy bit of travel, the dark arts, if you will. But when we were sort of putting together this and working out interesting things we could say about ourselves, I realized that I'm actually very vanilla. And the interesting bit about me is I ran a DMC in Oman. I've lived in Oman, I've lived in New Zealand, and I've traveled extensively around the world, but I don't have exciting stories like my two fellow hosts. So James Clark, Travel Zoo Guru, dazzle us with what you do and who you are.
Hello, everyone. And who would have guessed Will was a little vanilla? Well, we'll be hearing lots more of Vanilla Will as we talk on this podcast. But yes, as Will said, I'm James Clark. I have spent over 20 years on both the consumer and the commercial side. I've also run a tour operator, and now at Travel Zoo, I'm on the other side of the fence, working with tour operators, cruise partners, destination tourist boards alike, and helping them deliver their message to all of our wonderful members. And when you ask me maybe about some of the exciting things in travel or unexpected things that have happened to me in travel, I have been on a plane crash and survived to tell the tale. And I have also, unfortunately, been kidnapped on a desert safari and also lived to tell the tale. And maybe in one of these episodes, I'll tell you all about what happened.
And Andy Headington, what about you? Tell us about the world of marketing in which you live and your exciting story, which is getting pretty close to James's and not as vanilla as mine.
So yes, my name is Andy Headington. I'm CEO of a digital marketing agency called Adido. We have been trading for 23 years now, so I've seen a huge amount of change in technology, how the way we buy travel, consumer adoption of new technologies like AI, and what all of that means to travel agents, travel operators, destinations, and everything in between. So my part of the podcast will be very much looking at technology, how it's impacting us, what the trends are in the markets, and hopefully giving a few little tidbits to everyone that listens in terms of how they can adapt and improve what they do. I haven't been kidnapped, and luckily I've not been on a plane crash, but I very nearly was, I guess, because when I was in Fiji traveling around the world, I boarded a plane which had an engine which set on fire on the runway as we were about to take off. We left the plane, and 24 hours later, I was back on the same plane to get back on it to fly to Hawaii, and very fortunately the engine did not explode, so here I am to tell the tale. But it was a bit of a scary one, I have to say. But yeah, luckily nobody died.
Christ, I've obviously not lived a life, so hopefully I can make up with it with some interesting punditry on here. Andy, you're going to tell us a little bit about why we're doing this podcast, who it's for, and also maybe how people can find us.
I listen to podcasts very, very intently. I'm sure you do, Will. I'm sure you do, James. And I'm sure you do, fellow listeners. There are many podcasts out there that can take your attention and your ears into many places. But the world of travel has some podcasts already. We wanted to start something very, very different to give very relevant and up-to-date news stories and give different angles and perspectives in the world of travel from both the three of us, but also our guests, because we know a lot, but we don't know everything. So there are many other podcasts that you can listen to that talk about what's happening in the world of travel, but they're probably a month out of date, or maybe they've got a corporate sponsor, or maybe they're just not that interesting, to be frank. So we're trying to bring everything we can with our own knowledge on the ground, running our own businesses, being involved in the travel industry day in, day out, to really give different perspectives, different opinions, sometimes very heated, sometimes very agreeable, and everything in between, to really give what you need to know right now as best we can. We're going to be doing this twice a week. We are going to have the three of us on every time, or sometimes there'll be two of us with a guest speaker, but really just trying to keep our finger on the pulse so that you get to understand what's really affecting the world of travel right now and learn from it. You can find us on YouTube. Just type Let's Talk Travel. We are also on all the major podcast platforms, and we're hopefully at many events that you'll be at. So if you get to see us in person, say hello and say you're a listener, or hit subscribe online and share your love that way.
Fabulous. We're all a little bit excited, if I'm honest. So without further ado, we're gonna get into sort of our first topic, our first podcast, and hopefully have some interesting debate around this one, because I think we all disagree slightly on things around this. So let's set the scene. We're at the start of June. We've had over 2 months of fighting and ceasefire without any kind of conclusion to the war in Iran. And certainly my observation are things are starting to creak. There's a lot of talk from Trump and JD Vance about ceasefire is coming, the deal is done. It's not here yet. There is further bombardment in the region today across the Middle East. There is still foreign office advice that people should not travel to the Middle East. And I think the question we're looking into today is not when it recovers, but what if it doesn't recover? What if this is, the never-ending issue in the region, uncertainty, a lack of safety, a lack of clarity, and how does that affect the industry? What does the structural closure of the Middle East affect? What happens with all the airline carriers and the Middle Eastern airline carriers who are fantastic? If they aren't transacting in the way they used to, if there isn't the carriage there, if there isn't the hotel stay, what does that look like? And I think we all disagree a little bit on this as to how resilient travel is and the impact the Middle East has had. But James, coming to you first, let's look at the sort of long tail. Is this going to be permanent scar, or is this very much temporary, irrespective of, whether peace is everlasting?
Without a doubt, there's a permanent scar being made now. This wasn't over at the beginning, like everyone said it was. You and I were sat there at an event talking about it, saying, look, this is going to be over. If this is over by the weekend, I think we can, see a quick recovery. But the longer this goes on, the more dangerous this is becoming for these tour operators in this environment. And what we forget is you're not talking about just direct tourism to this area. There is vast amount of through traffic that is also not going to this destination. And we've looked at other destinations in the past, and you've got lots of case studies of ones that have seen very quick recoveries, because of the broader nation of that, the broader nation and how they handled the disaster or the incident at hand. And then you've also got other instances where some destinations have had to suffer for years until they've even got back even maybe 50-75% of the tourism they had in the first place. So for me, this is a permanent scar and the longer this goes on, that scar gets deeper and longer.
But Andy, come on, everyone loves a deal. What's the marketing man in you saying? The travel industry can be resilient when the price is right, surely.
I think money always talks, doesn't it, to some extent? I do agree with James to some degree that yes, there's some reputational damage going on here, but Dubai as a place to go and live and set up business 20, 30 years ago was almost unheard of. You go and live in Dubai and that's where you're going to set your business up and do work. And yeah, okay, maybe. And now look at it, it's one of the pinnacles of the Middle East. It's where so many flights go through. It's where people take holidays, where they go and visit their friends. That region has seen phenomenal growth. And yes, there's some instability now, but in a couple of years' time, once this is, I think, all blown over, once Trump's out of the way because the midterms are coming, he's not going to be so powerful. Things will go back to a certain amount of normality. People will want to go back to the region. They've got family that live there. They've got friends that live there. Planes will start to go through again. And I think I think this is more of a temporary bruise. It's a big bruise. Don't get me wrong. It's a good kick in the shin, but it's not going to be a permanent scar.
So
Guys, no,
let's
no,
look at
no,
it.
no.
No, let's look at this. Let's look at this. And I'm not going to backpedal here, but let's look at this, okay? I'm not saying demand doesn't disappear because look, I'm in the travel industry and I've been here long enough to see so many horrible things and crazy things happen in this industry. And the biggest metric to measure that will be ultimately, as I like to say, the equation of the holiday cost plus the consumer experience minus the perceived risk equals that recovery rate. That's my semi-equation to solve this. So if Dubai holidays hit the market and they say the war's over and Dubai holidays hit the market, 599 flights, an amazing accommodation. Of course, people are going to book it because they've never seen 599 before. But if they think recovery in the market at 999, 1,500, £2,500 holidays is going to work, it won't be. People will not take that risk.
Yeah, but it's risk. Come on. I mean, this is my bread and butter. I get that in terms of, the risk of something happening. We've spoken about if, a ceasefire was shattered by a projectile hitting a passenger plane, that is catastrophe for the industry and everything else. But I cannot see, unless there is a real change to Foreign Office advice, which, okay, maybe come down to political pressure, but I can't see how this is not a risky endeavor. And the longer it goes on, companies are going to have to make some strategic changes because the customer is going to make a strategic change. And that's how I see it. I just cannot see any other way, price or not, on that. I'm interested, coming back to you, James, in terms of, what it looks like, though, for the actual providers in terms of, and perhaps on the ground a little bit more. You look at Dubai and the infrastructure that they've built. Look at Saudi and the money they've invested. Okay, for differing reasons, that's been somewhat affected. But what does it look like in terms of operation on the ground? How long do they stay around, and how long are they prepared to bear the risk? Because the flip side to what you're saying is that price will be pushed down and they're not going to make any money out of a recovery, in inverted commas.
That you've got to start somewhere. You've got to. And if we look at that whole region that's affected, there's going to be some immediate winners who, because of the infrastructure, because of their ability to say that we've already got the foundations in place to bring tourism back quite quickly, like a Dubai, for instance, they'll be able to get up and rolling a lot quicker than the likes of a Saudi, who are in this development stage anyway. There's cranes everywhere. They're still building sidewalks on a lot of the side of the roads. They've got sport there as a big driver. They've had to move and pivot a huge amounts of their money into different areas. But one of the biggest challenges is that the area itself, particularly somewhere like Dubai, the vast amount of those workers are now no longer in Dubai. There's been a huge exit of staff and workers for all for the travel and the leisure industry. So it's not just an overnight, I'm going to be able to switch that back on. That's why I said this is becoming a permanent scar. This is not a furlough of a few months. We are talking that the longer this goes on, the longer the disruption happens. And the longer this goes on, there's a bigger chance that those staff have moved on and pivoted to a different job.
Andy, how do you see this?
I think, yes, they probably will do. And yes, they probably will struggle to get those people back. But as I say, this is a very resilient area. It's a very rich area in the main. And yes, some of these countries are more developed than others. Some of them have got more infrastructure than others. But it has been a relatively safe place over the last few decades. And as I say, the main instigator of this is the US. And if the US has to change tack for a variety of different reasons, then that will start to disappear. I think this could be something that does last for a while, but I don't see, as I say, my point earlier on, I think it's more of a kick in the shin rather than losing a leg. And I think this is all recoverable within a reasonable amount of time. So yes, people will be losing jobs. Maybe some airlines will struggle. Maybe even a couple will be lost. Again, maybe in the grand scheme of things, a couple of airlines out of the region isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. It just hopefully makes those that survive a bit more resilient. And then it can all start to come back in time. I'm optimistic.
Well, I hear your optimism. I'm very pleased for your optimism, but I'm skeptical, funnily enough, about what it actually looks like. What are consumers saying though right now? Andy, if you got anything in terms of search, into what you're seeing, are people still looking at the region, or is that stupidity in terms of the Foreign Office advice? Wave your magic wand and tell me what you see.
I don't have a magic wand, but I do have access to Google Ads and some of their data. So I've been running.
Same thing, isn't it?
I wish there was a magic make me a millionaire button in Google. I haven't found it yet. Google provides a number of data points that are publicly accessible. One around Google Ads and search volumes, and I've been looking at that for about the last 4 years in terms of travel. Places like Dubai this year particularly have seen huge drops. Just last month, Dubai, for phrases around holidays and travel, were around 3,000 or 4,000, whereas about a year ago they were at 12,000. So just taking that one place as an example, you've seen a 70% drop in what I'd say search demand. Other places in the region are again similar losses. So it is having a definite impact immediately on the travel plans of certain people and certain holidays they may or may not be taking. So, there is a drop there. I'd be keeping a very, very close eye as to what happens in May and June when that number comes out as to what the impact has been, because yes, there's been a lot of negative press, but it won't take a lot for that to sort of start to get pushed to the background with other news stories, and perhaps this all gets blown over, as I say.
And Andy, can I ask another question, which is, who's been the biggest winners in those searches?
Mostly places around Europe. So places like Spain have also been very, very popular, increasingly so. We've seen some interest in UK holidays as well, because obviously there's been a lot of reasonably good weather, certainly in the last few weeks anyway. And just, also Latin America has been rather successful. Again, people have, for one reason or another, skirted around the US, or certainly demand is fluctuated around there. So people are still traveling, people are still booking trips, just into different destinations at the moment.
But let's call a spade a spade. I still think the risk needs to be considered, the financial protection needs to be considered. I cannot believe, let's say Foreign Office advice softens. If, maybe there isn't an out and out peace, but there is a fairly good ceasefire that seems to be holding. Maybe the Foreign Office advice does soften, but I cannot see the ABTAs, the atolls of this world protecting customers for the region without due consideration. There's going to be a real fear if there's a shift in terms of volume to what there was before. I still am concerned that there are deposits that have already been paid that, because of Foreign Office advice, are being lost. There isn't the same structure there was during COVID, where those deposits were protected and moved forwards. I think there is a structural issue, and I'm interested to know, Jane, I'll come to you, James, actually. Do you think operators are going to fall foul unless they change tactics on selling the Middle East, and how long can they hold out?
Well, first off, there's a couple of points here, but if you hold your deposits for those consumers and you're not actively providing those holidays, you can only do that for so long. We've had an experience in the mind of the consumer is COVID. That's the last time where we had a huge surge in this. Oh, I know what I'll do is I'll hold the credit. We created this amazing ability. It was like a credit IOU that we provided the consumer. Now, a lot of operators, particularly those who are in the UAE area, someone like Emirates Holidays was fantastic. They said, we'll hold your money. If it isn't resolved before this date, you get a full refund. And they did it. And the reason they did that was because they knew fundamentally that if they provided that excellent service and guarantee, people would come back and book with Emirates Holidays again. So I don't have any doubt that someone like Emirates Holidays are managing this. In fact, I've heard very good feedback from people who've booked through them that they'll be looking after their consumers and their customers very well. However, the smaller operators do not have that financial backing and that resilience to do that. They will be holding on to these deposits because, let's be honest, they know that if they give them back, they probably won't see that spend from the consumer elsewhere because they're going to take the money and run. And also, that's profit that's going to be assigned to that deposit that's sat with them. So they're hoping this is resolved so they can close that. So this is causing greater concern in the market as well around trust. And we've talked about trust before as a three, and this is one of the things we'll talk about a lot on these podcasts. But consumer trust right now is pivotal, because if you can protect the customer, keep the communications channel open, and honor your word, you will keep that customer again for the future.
But you add music to my ears, because you know that I'm all about the trust and the protection. But one thing that we've discussed for a future episode is the move to, self-booking. Andy, that surely is a massive threat, because I imagine there are a lot of people with the deals that they find were self-booking flights, were self-booking hotels, and that is a risk.
It is a big risk, and I think we're going to talk about this many times, I'm sure, on our podcast about the self booker versus package travel agent booker. There is a real risk here that this changes. Well, I say risk is also an opportunity. All these things can be worked the other way. Of people really like booking something last year on a whim, cheap deposit, great idea. Now they're looking to travel in July in 2026, and what actually happens? You've got to pay your final amount, certain amount of weeks before you travel. I'm not going to bother to do that. I don't want to go to the region. Or I've now discovered my flight's been cancelled, or the FCDO has now said, like, I can't actually take this trip at all, or I shouldn't be taking this trip. So I think there's going to be a whole load of turmoil. There's going to be a whole load of negative sentiment online when some of this actually comes to fruition. But as I say, I think there's a whole generation of people who haven't really booked through an agent, haven't thought about insurance or protection in the way that we're talking about here. And this may be the wake up call that they get. And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because I think more people do need to be aware. But it's definitely going to have an impact, and some of those operators and those agents will perhaps struggle to deal with it. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
Thanks to our sponsor, Travelzoo, the club for travel enthusiasts. Join Travelzoo today for hand-picked deals exclusively for members.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Quick fire. Don't go on. I know that's normally my forte, so keep it to a sentence. James Clark, the first destination in the region that's going to see a booking spike if things stabilise, and why?
Dubai, because they have the infrastructure, they have the know-how, they've got the longest experience in the area of recovery and driving sales, and they'll throw money behind it.
Andy?
I'm going to be slightly boring and agree with James. It's one of the most well-known destinations. It has the capital to invest. It has invested in the past, and it will invest again.
I'm going to do what I normally do and disagree with James. Turkey, I think they've got the lift. Turkish Airlines, Istanbul Airport, I think people will get more confidence from that. And I think it will be much longer in any way, shape, or form than everyone thinks. I think you're a fair way off Dubai coming back that quickly. What is the industry going to get wrong in all of this, Andy?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be the comms around where's safe, where's not safe, when you can, when you can't. This is an age-old problem in terms of travel, in terms of getting the right message to the right people at the right time. I think there's going to be mixed messaging perhaps coming out, and I think we're just going to probably make a bit of a pig's ear of it. I hope not, and I'm sure we've learned some lessons from recent events, but that's my fear.
James?
I would say it's what the time period is being sold. So if the market reopens tomorrow, I wouldn't short sell. I would future sell. And I think that could be the key difference. Don't sell the immediate, because if it's a fragile, sensitive situation and they start short selling, for instance, September, October shoulder season in the UAE, which is popular, and something doesn't stick in some form of truce between USA and Iran, it could all unwind. So I think if it gets resolved, don't sell short term, start selling the dream for 2027, and I think they'll do well.
That was a very short answer. Love it. You can have my time. Yes or no? Someone's going out of business as a result of this in the UK. James?
No.
Oh, on the fence, Sandy?
I'm going to say no as well. I think there's enough resilience in some of the big players to sit it out.
I'm not saying a big player, but I think someone's going to get it
Okay.
wrong. I think there's leverage there that is just not right, and yeah, sorry to say, and I feel sorry for the consumer, which is ultimately where it sits with all of this. You have to put your heads on the block. Would you travel to the region? Where? And what forces your hand to go there? Andy, I'll come to you first.
Price, baby. That's definitely going to be the thing that
Oh,
makes
God.
it. Using James' equation, I know this. James has got access to all sorts of deals, and he's talked about some previously. So I think if the price is good enough and the next few weeks are quiet enough, the news makes so much of all this stuff, and there's so much negativity out there, which again we've talked about. I think there'll be some other story that comes along. It gets brushed under the carpet. Trump shuts his mouth. We carry on, and I'm definitely going. If I could, and I would, then I'd definitely be going there. Which region? Putting Turkey in the mix, I'd definitely go there. But perhaps Dubai. Why not?
James, are you agreeing with Vanilla Ice here?
I would say yes, but the destination I would go to is Jordan, just because it's always been on my bucket list. And I also feel so sorry for the Jordanians, because it seems whenever they are able to open their beautiful country up, something happens near them or around them which affects their tourism industry. So for me, it'd be yes, Jordan.
Yeah, I'd say yes as well. I think I'd need the reassurance of Foreign Office advice. I would go back to Oman. I thoroughly recommend it. I'm not even supported by the tourist board, but absolutely love the country and the people. So yeah, guys, that's it. We've not agreed on all of this. We probably haven't managed to unpick it completely, but we only had the time that you had to do a Joe Wicks workout. So hopefully you've listened. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Do get in touch. Do share honestly what you think, what we can add, what you want to see us discussing. As Andy said, there are numerous different ways you can follow us. We've got our own YouTube channel. You'll also see us across LinkedIn, and you can follow us wherever you get your podcast. So we'll be coming back to you. We've got some exciting episodes coming up. We've got some very exciting guests coming up. But that has been Let's Talk Travel, and thank you for listening.